A very common thing I hear is, Tyler, I want to build muscle, I want to gain confidence, overall build an aesthetic physique, but I can't get a gym membership. Well, whatever the case, here are the only bodyweight exercises you will need to build an aesthetic physique and get that upper body going. Let's get it. Let me quickly explain how you actually build muscle with just body weight. And it all comes down to tension. You see, mechanical tension is the driving force of hypertrophy. It's essentially a pulling force that your muscle experiences when you resistance train. Resistance training is a form of exercise that requires your muscle to work against a certain force. In the case of body weight, it's, well, your gravity and your body. And the way to maximize mechanical tension experienced by the muscle is with these three things. First off, choose isotonic exercises. These are exercises that require the muscle to actively stretch and contract. For example, choose an ab crunch over a plank. Number 2 is train close enough to failure. So take your sets within 3 reps of failure, or if not, 2 failure. And number 3 is apply progressive overload. In the case of bodyweight exercises, we can't really just add weight, so we can progressive overload by adding reps, increasing your active range of motion, slowing the eccentric, or putting ourselves in more of a mechanically disadvantaged position. Also, when performing any of these bodyweight exercises, with the exception of direct ab training, you want to hold what's known as a hollow pose. This is when you squeeze your abs, squeeze your glutes, straighten your knees, and your body almost resembles like a banana or a rocking chair when you're laying on your back. This will help you move your body through space as one single unit, so there's less energy leakage. With that understanding, let's get to the exercises. Right, so I'm gonna be breaking down the exercises into 3 functions: push, pull, and pretty much everything else. So let's start with push. So first exercise we're gonna be doing is a push-up for the chest and front delts. Now, the biggest advice I can give you when doing this exercise is to hold that hollow position I showed you earlier. Also, in terms of shoulder position, you don't wanna be too flared out here with your elbows super wide. Ideally, I recommend having around 45 to 60 degrees of shoulder abduction, similar to as if you're gonna do a bench press. Now, ideally, you also want something to elevate your hands with. Either push-up bars or, ironically, dumbbells can work for this. And this allows you to get a deeper stretch on your chest. Now, there's a growing body of evidence that suggests that doing exercises that puts the muscle in a higher degree of stretch is beneficial for hypertrophy, and thus by using these, you're able to benefit from getting that deeper stretch. And on top of that, the chest is a muscle that benefits from something known as stretch-mediated hypertrophy. So TLDR, it is important to get as deep of a stretch on your chest as possible when you can. Now, while push-up bars and dumbbells are ideal, pretty much anything that will elevate your hands and have them leveled on each side would work. But I like these because they also keeps your wrist in a more neutral position, which is advantageous if you tend to get wrist pain. Now in the beginning, 2 to 4 sets of push-ups alone might be enough. But if you get to the point where you're doing like 30 push-ups in a row back to back, then perhaps you should consider making the exercise more difficult by doing the following. First off, you can slow the eccentric part of the movement by adding a 2-second count on the way down. Now, I don't recommend doing any more of a 2-second count, or else it can get kind of monotonous. And that's why, if that's not enough, what you can also do is perform a decline push-up by elevating your feet. This essentially mimics an incline press, which you will be weaker in. Also, you get the added benefit of it biasing more of the upper chest than a regular push-up. Now, the higher you elevate your feet, the more difficult the movement's gonna be. However, I don't recommend elevating your feet up to like your hip height, or else you turn the movement more into a front delt exercise rather than a chest exercise. Next body weight push exercise we're gonna be doing is a body weight tricep extension. Now, this is an isolation movement for the triceps specifically. So for this exercise, you will need something sturdy like a tabletop or steppers. I've even seen some people use like a barbell. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab hold of the bar or corner of a tabletop and take a few steps back until your arms are completely straight. Continue to step back and lean forward so that your arms are now reached out almost entirely overhead. It's important to keep your core tight by squeezing your abs. And again, think about holding that hollow pose I mentioned from earlier. Now let your elbows bend while still keeping every other aspect of your body in place. Once your head is roughly under the table, extend the elbow while still holding the hollow pose. mimicking a bodyweight skull crusher. Now, if the movement becomes too easy, try lowering the bar or the steppers or platform that you're using. If you're using a tabletop, you can also elevate your feet. So I chose specifically this exercise over other options because one, it's an isolation exercise specifically only for the triceps, and two, it puts the triceps in a more stretched position, which again, like I mentioned earlier, is advantageous for hypertrophy. So that was the push exercises. Now we're gonna be moving on to pull, starting with the overhand grip pull-up for the lats. Now for this exercise, take at least a shoulder width grip. I personally go even a little bit wider than that. Now you also wanna hold a hollow pose, which will help you naturally stop swinging when you jump up on the bar.
Now focus on pulling the bar down, getting your elbows to touch the side of your body.
I prefer that mental cue over bringing your chin above the bar because it puts the focus on your lats rather than just trying to get your body above the bar, which can involve some biceps. It can involve you kicking your feet up when you're doing so. So it puts the focus in the right place. Now pull-ups alone are a pretty difficult exercise, so I don't think progressions would be necessary here. But if you're currently struggling to get your first pull-up, that is where the next exercise comes in. Next pull exercise is gonna be an inverted row for the mid-back, rear delts, and lats to some degree. Now for this exercise, you're gonna need a straight bar that is propped up at least arm length high. If you're doing this at home, I've even seen some people just use a bar and prop up 2 chairs. Now you're gonna wanna come underneath the bar and hold a wider than shoulder width grip, pretty much hanging yourself under the bar. And like always, hold the hollow pose so that you're pretty much as straight as a board. Now pull your chest to the bar while also squeezing your shoulder blades back to get as good of a contraction as possible. Once that is reached, aim for a 2-second eccentric, slowing that negative for a 2-second tempo. And as you straighten your arms, let your shoulder blades naturally come apart as well. Now in terms of progression, the closer you are to parallel to the ground, the harder the movement will be. Now the wider grip is gonna be more of a mid-back focused row, but if you want this to be more lat focused, simply take a closer grip around shoulder width apart, and when you pull, have a more tucked elbow position, meaning arms close to your side. Now improving at the inverted row will directly translate to overall back strength, helping you get to your first pull-up. So with those 2 exercises, we pretty much covered our back. Now we're gonna be doing a biceps focus chin up for, of course, the bicep. For the grip, we're gonna take an underhand shoulder width grip. And like the pull-up, we're also gonna be holding a hollow pose in order to steady yourself. Now once you stabilize yourself, you want to lean back so that your arms are not directly overhead. Now from that position, think about getting your wrists to touch your face, closing that elbow angle. You see, the subtle difference between a more lat-focused pull-up compared to a biceps-focused chin-up is we want to focus on just closing this elbow angle since that is the function of the biceps. Now once you've closed that elbow angle, start straightening your arms slowly, controlling the eccentric for 2 seconds. Now once your arms are straight, you wanna try keeping your head leaned back. Now this is the only exercise where it might make sense to break down that hollow pose just so you can stay in that lean back position. So naturally, you may need to let your spine go into extension a little bit. Now if you find this exercise too difficult, what you can do is an underhand grip inverted row. Once more, thinking about closing that elbow angle. So we covered push exercises, we covered pull. Let's talk about pretty much everything else, starting with the abs. Now the key with any ab exercises is you want to actively extend and bend your spine. That is the function of the abs. My favorite exercise is some sort of leg raise variation, ideally on a captain's chair, but a bar works too, as well as on the ground. And then something ideally where you're twisting your body. So some sort of ab crunch where you're doing a twist. Pocket pickers can work. And if you're more advanced, you can do something like a double crunch, which will suffice. And from a bodyweight standpoint, that pretty much covers ab training. And lastly, we have the side delts, which is one of the most important muscles if you want to achieve an aesthetic physique, as mentioned in my last video. Now, I've thought long and hard about this, and I've come to the determination that there's really no good body weight side delt exercise. Luckily, it doesn't take much weight to actually train the side delts. So honestly, you can find anything heavy in your house that has a handle and perform some sort of unilateral lateral raise. Now, I recommend doing this unilaterally as you might not be able to find duplicates of the same weight, and you can use the offhand to actually brace yourself while doing the lateral raise. Some key recommendations to raising your scapular plane as opposed to your frontal plane, but pretty much something like laundry detergent or say a gallon of milk can all work. Or maybe if you have the money to buy a pair of dumbbells, this might be a good reason to do so. And those are the only body weight exercises you need to build muscle in your upper body. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that this was helpful to you. Leave a like if you want to support my page. Subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this to level up your physique. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.